welcome to Ignite Studio. I'm Jeremy Chapman.
Howdy, and I'm Jeffrey Snover.
So we're going to present something brand new, something that a lot of people probably haven't even seen yet, something that is small and born in the cloud, Nano Server.
Nano Server, that's right, Nano Server. I got to tell you, Nano Server is the most important, most significant change we've made to Windows Server since Windows NT. I mean, it's just crazy.
I would say it's huge, but it's actually quite small.
Exactly.
So let's talk about what Nano Server actually means to the people out here watching, because we have some visuals.
Yeah.
We'll explain what Nano Server actually is, because it's a huge leap forward in terms of what we're doing to really make it a minimum footprint, right?
Exactly. Nano Server is a dramatically refactored version of Windows Server. Dramatically refactored. Now, why do we do that? And the answer is that the needs of the cloud require much lower resource consumption, much lower serviceability, much tighter security footprint. And here you see the results of that refactoring. They're just phenomenal. So look here, this shows here in orange, this is full server, in blue is server core, and in yellow is Nano Server. So for critical patches, we go from 23 down to 2. And
that's for a month, right?
So what we did was we analyzed all the patches that were done in Windows Server, in 2014.
Okay.
We saw what code was changed,
right.
And we figured out whether or not that code existed in Nano Server.
Okay.
And so basically, out of 23, only 2 would have affected Nano Server.
Right.
So that's crazy. And the thing I like to point out is this is not just reduced patches, but these were actual vulnerabilities to the system that we detected.
Yep.
So even before you patched it, you had that vulnerability. On Nano Server, you did not.
Right.
So it's reduced patching and it's increased in security. And look how this translates to in terms of reboots. And by the way, we did it the right way, which is to say we looked at the patches that would affect, and if that would incur a reboot, we incurred it, right? And so that's why the percentages are a little different. But we go from 11 down to 3, a little more than a quarter of the reboots for Nano Server.
The setup time is also really I used to do Windows deployment for years and years on the client team, and geez, these are in seconds, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is going to affect your coffee habit.
Right.
You're no longer going to be able to start a setup and go get a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
So look at this. So here we don't have numbers for full server. Full server is even much larger than this. But server core takes 300 seconds to set up. Nano Server, 40. Is that crazy? And of course, the one that gets everyone, ports open, more secure, goes from 34 ports.
Whoops.
Down to 12, so much more secure, fewer things open on by default. And look at this, VHD size. VHD size goes from 8.3 down to 410 megabytes. 410 megabytes, it's just crazy. It is so fast. And so that's almost 20 times smaller. Just incredible.
So it's true to its name, obviously. It's actually a Nano Server, but beyond it just being small, what's it actually good for?
Yeah, so here what we're doing is, it is what we call the future of server, which is to say eventually all the server workloads will be refactored to run on Nano Server. To begin with, we're focused in on 2 scenarios. Cloud OS infrastructure, literally that means clustered hypervisors and clustered storage. So if you go look at the Windows Server, you saw the Cloud Platform Solution. Cloud Platform Solution is a cloud in a box. It's 1 to 4 racks. This was run on that. It is composed of Hyper-V clusters and Hyper-V servers. So you'd run there. The second is born in the cloud applications. Born in the cloud applications. So these are applications built with a cloud design point. They're managed with a DevOps mindset, configured with desired state configuration, etc. And there we're going after all the interesting language runtimes. So ASP and ASP.NET is there. We've also got things like Python, Ruby, Django, Nginx, Java, Node.js. If you want to write an application in a cloud application, that language runtime will be available to you.
And all these things, it's headless, obviously.
It's headless.
No support for WoW 64, so you have to run a 64-bit natively compiled app, right?
Exactly correct.
And all these different deployment options for Windows Server. But all the refactoring, this is huge, right? This is, again, what you're just talking to.
Yes.
The refactoring is what gets it so small and so tiny which I would have, when I was doing Windows a few years ago, that would have been awesome to have a 410 meg server. We're following that server core pattern as well, right?
Yes.
So all these different things that we're doing in order to make our server smaller, in order to make it work really well, especially in cloud applications where we have to make 10, 100, 1000x of these servers light up in very, very quick time. This enables that. I mean, this is the thing that actually makes that real. So I know beyond all of the PowerPoint and the talking points, you've got some real demos that you want to show of this running. So
let me just make one point here.
Sure.
So it is a deployment option of Windows Server. It is not a SKU in and of itself. It's a deployment option of a SKU.
Okay. So let's have a look at a couple demos then. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, so what are you going to see first?
So first, it does not have a GUI, but that does not mean you don't use a GUI to manage it. So now what I'm going to show you is our new Remote System Administration Toolkit running in the Azure portal. It's crazy. So here's the Azure portal, and what we're going to do is we're going to now connect to this from this Azure portal to a Nano server box. So here we go, enter in the connection credentials. We now connect to this machine, and you see we've got all the details about that Nano server, including a restart button, a shutdown button, and all the details.
The important thing here is because we've changed the way management works, you can't just remote into this. It's got to be done via a tool like this or via some other shell, right?
Exactly. Now I'm showing the general tools, showing you that this is a technical preview of the Nano server. We have computer identification. Here we can switch from work group to domain join, change the name of the computer. Here we can add administrators to the users to the administrator group.
Okay.
Here we show all the networking details, and you can go from dynamic to static IP addresses. We have 4 performance monitors. So we have CPU performance monitors, showing you the number of processes, maximum speed. We have network adapters. We can drill in, show you how the network adapters are performing, memory utilization of that. And the disk metrics are turned off by default. So you come in and you turn them on because there's a performance impact to that. And now you can monitor disk utilization of the Nano server. Now we've got a number of tools. Here we're showing processes. You can right-click on a process to end that or to create a process dump. You can then transfer that process dump from Nano server to another machine for offline analysis. You can run a process, start a process on that remote machine. You can add additional columns. So here you go and pick additional columns that you want to see for each one of the processes. Here we're showing all the services. You're able to right-click on the service to stop them, pause them, manage the services. Similarly, you can configure all the editors. Now here what we did was we took a number of the tools that have traditionally been hard to do remotely, and we've added them to that. So here we've got the remote registry editor. In the web browser, the registry editor.
Cool.
Okay. Here we have roles and features. You can add roles and features. Here is a remote PowerShell interface connected to that Nano server box. And if you click on commands, you get the show command window. So the show command window shows you a graphical view of the PowerShell commandlets. So it's showing you all the commandlets. You click on one, it shows you the parameters that you have to enter, and then you can enter that there. So those people that are still learning PowerShell, this is a great way to learn PowerShell. Perform an action. Here we're asking for a set of credentials. Here we have Device Manager. Device Manager working remotely in a web browser. So if you had a problem with the device, it would show up here with a red badge next to it. You're able to see all the details of the devices. And lastly, we have the event viewer. So you're able to navigate the events. And this, you've had remoting, but honestly, the performance wasn't so good. So we've reworked the instrumentation on this. So this is a very performant thing. And it's got filtering, etc. All right, so that is the remote management tool running in...
So that's RSMT, so you're going to need to use something like that in order to get to all these different, what would be GUI elements or other means to get to these screens. It's all running in HTML there, right?
Exactly correct.
Very cool.
Okay, so now here, we're going to use PowerShell. We're going to directly connect to this box. So we set the IP address, and what we've done is we've configured Nano Server on this box.
Okay.
We have Chef running on it.
Okay.
So Chef, if you're not familiar with that, Chef is a DevOps deployment toolkit that integrates in with PowerShell desired state configuration. So at this point, we're entering our credentials to the Nano Server box. We connect in. Now we change to Chef 64. Now the Chef guys were 32-bit. When they went and wanted to be on Nano Server, they had to port to 64-bit.
Right.
Here I'm running the Chef client, and what I'm installing is Nginx and the Django framework.
Okay.
Okay. So this takes a little bit. And now as quickly as that, we've used Chef, open source, to install an open source framework, Django, and Nginx. So now I bring up a web browser from the local client. I connect to that machine. This is the Django polls. I then go and try out one of the polls. I'm going to say, how do you commute to school? By car. And there you have it. So that was, as quickly as that, Chef deploying Nginx as a reverse forwarder and the Django framework.
Yep.
And here we're showing the PowerShell remote editing. So I was connected remotely to Nano Server. I said PS edit of a local file. ISE brought that local file to the client and showed the Django recipe for installing it.
Very cool.
As
We're doing
cool as
other
that.
things as well with partners like HP, right?
Yes, we are. So we talk about Nano Server, but Nano Server doesn't necessarily mean wimpy. It doesn't mean wimpy at all. In fact, that was an HP box with 160 cores. And so here is Nano Server running hypervisor on that HP box. It's got 160 cores, and we've got 1,000 VMs running on that box.
Wow.
And at this point, we're using only 10% of the memory.
10%.
10%, exactly.
That's amazing.
So 160 cores, 1,000 VMs, 10% of the memory.
Wow. Okay.
Amazing stuff.
Very cool. That means all the scale's not going to Windows in that sense. It's going to the apps, it's going to the actual services that you want the platform to run.
That's exactly it, Jeremy. By reducing the consumption that we do for the operating system, we're able to give more of that to the applications. You know, I've long said that local administration local GUIs is a very bad idea. That is very expensive. With Nano Server, now you understand the true cost of running a local admin GUI. So I know some of you have people in your organization that say, oh, well, I don't like doing remote GUIs, or I don't want to learn PowerShell. And my only advice to you is, the next time you have that conversation, look at that person and ask yourself the question, is that person really worth 10 times the increase in security patches? Is that person really worth 4 times as many reboots? Is that person really worth all that memory consumption? And I think you might find that maybe it's better that you have that person re-up their skills or find somebody that can manage that environment. Because the results are so dramatic.
It's amazing. So what else do you have to show us?
All right, I think that's it. So here we're just showing the numbers.
Very cool. So to find out more in terms of Nano Server and things that you're working on, where do we follow you then, Jeffrey?
Yeah, so best place to follow me is Twitter. I'm at jsnover, J-S-N-O-V as in victory, E-R, jsnover. That's a great place to follow me. I'm pretty active on Twitter.
Great. And we've set up an aka.ms link, the Nano Server team, aka.ms/Nano Server team, and you can find all the videos about Nano Server that you guys have been making on that team as well. So
exactly. So last week we were at Build, and all the Build videos are there showing you the details of how you can develop applications to Nano Server. This week, after our sessions, we'll show videos that we showed here and a bunch more. Lots of great stuff. Lots of really surprising stuff. This is moving very quickly.
Great
Again,
stuff.
It's one of the most important, most significant changes we've made to Windows Server since NT. So you want to pay attention to this one. Don't sleep on this one. Sleep on some other technology, not this one.
Very cool stuff. So thanks for joining us today. Of course, that's all the time we have for now. Goodbye for now.